They want this to be a command and control center for their interference operations in Europe. They're very keen on it, and they've made it a priority for that reason. We know from what we understand about Chinese interference, Chinese government interference, that where there are more Chinese government officials, you get more
residents. Right now, they feel like they're being monitored by the CCP.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Freedom is Not Free channel. My name is Stan. Today we're diving into one of the most shocking stories unfolding in the heart of London. Right next to the historic Tower of London, the Chinese Communist Party is building a super embassy. Not a small diplomatic post, but a massive complex at Royal Mint Court. This structure, once completed, will be larger than the Royal Albert Hall. So this isn't just your regular embassy, it's a strategic outpost, sized for intelligence gathering, surveillance, and intimidation. So why are security services, local residents, and even foreign governments panicking? Because this embassy isn't just close to tourist spots, it's siting right between London's two financial powerhouses, the City and Canary Wharf. And more critically, beneath it lies a dense network of fiber optic cables, lines that carry the core communications of the UK's financial industry. Think about it. You're handing the CCP a direct window into the nervous system of Britain's economy. Banking, markets, infrastructure. Surveillance isn't just a risk, it's a guarantee. And the British financial data is guaranteed to be compromised. Earlier this month, the White House officially warned the UK, don't allow China to plant a fortress in your economic nerve center. A senior US official put it bluntly, the United States is deeply concerned about providing China with potential access to the sensitive communications of one of our closest allies. This warning was echoed by the Dutch parliament and senior figures across Europe. And yes, President Trump himself reportedly raised the issue with the UK Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, urging him to block it. Diplomats now say that the embassy has become a sticking point in the US-UK trade talks. Here is where it gets murky. In 2022, the Tower Hamlets Council rejected the embassy plan. But then Labour's Angela Rayner, now Housing Secretary, intervened personally and took control of the decision from the local authority. Then, right after Chancellor Rachel Reeves returned from a trip to China in 2024, something strange happened. Like Scotland Yard dropped its objections, Tower Hamlets Council reversed its stance, and suddenly no one was standing in the embassy's way. Was it a coincidence or Beijing's invisible hand at work? The local residents aren't fooled. The Royal Mint Court Residents Association is now crowdfunding a legal challenge. Their spokesman said, "This has been a David versus Goliath battle from the start, and we're not giving up." Meanwhile, Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, laid it out clearly. The government must block this. China is an adversary. Even the Prime Minister says so. And MI5 has confirmed it's conducting espionage against the UK on an epic scale. Luke de Pulford, Executive Director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, put it best. This will surprise no one, but it's a crushing disappointment, especially for their security services. This entire affair reeks of diplomatic pressure and political surrender. So, let's be honest, this wasn't a fair process. This was a slow-motion capitulation to an authoritarian regime. And today I have Luke de Pulford himself to talk to me about this Chinese mega embassy in the heart of London. Right now I have Luke de Pulford from the Interparliamentary Alliance on China here to talk to me about the mega embassy at Royal Mint Court. And it has been recommended for approval by the Planning Inspectorate already. The next stage would be Angela Rayner, who is the Housing Secretary in the UK. So Luke, do you believe this embassy will ultimately be approved?
It's almost certainly going to be approved, and there are a number of reasons for that, but the strongest and clearest indication we have is actually the meeting that Keir Starmer had with Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the G20 last year, where he said that he was only calling in the application after he'd had a call with Xi Jinping after becoming Prime Minister, and it had been mentioned as a diplomatic priority. So just to be clear for your viewers, when it comes to planning law, this kind of decision is normally made locally. And it was made locally last time round by Tower Hamlets Council, who unanimously rejected the Chinese application. This time round, the government has the power to call in the application, so they make the decision centrally, and that's what the Prime Minister himself said to Xi Jinping that he had done as a result of that phone call. So there's a pretty clear indication of what the government's thinking is around this, and it feels a bit like the planning process is simply going through the motions.
Why do you think the central government is so eager to be involved in that?
It's not that I think they're eager. I think that they are backed into a corner and they feel they have no choice. The PRC, which is an important trading partner for the United Kingdom, is saying that this is a diplomatic priority. And they're also trying to coerce the UK into doing it by refusing to allow our embassy in Beijing to be renovated, which has been waiting for renovation for years. So they're clearly using what tools that they can in order to try to force the UK government's hand. I think what I want to emphasize is this is highly unusual. It's very rare for a leader of any government to start saying it's our diplomatic priority that our embassy is in that particular location. The fact that China is doing that indicates to them how important this is, how much they want it. They want this to be a command and control center for their interference operations in Europe. They're very keen on it, and they've made it a priority for that reason.
Because the location is very important. It's right next to the city of London. And what I've read about is the cabling system. It all goes beyond the embassy, and it's in the underground. And could you tell me more about the national security concerns here? Why are the residents of the Royal Mint so concerned about the mega embassy being established there?
Well, there are so many arguments. From the residents' point of view, there are about 100 families who will be effectively living on Chinese land. They're very worried about that. They're also worried about exposure to surveillance and the possibility of some kind of attack on the embassy, which would naturally affect their homes. But beyond the residents, there are many other national security concerns. We know from what we understand about Chinese government interference, that where there are more Chinese government officials, you get more interference. This embassy would be huge. It plans well over 200 additional move-on flats to be built there, in addition to an already huge site. We're talking hundreds of PRC state employees in the heart of London. That's going to mean more interference. We're very worried about that. A couple of other reasons. There is no space outside this embassy for protest without it disrupting major arterial roads. Freedom of assembly, freedom of protest is very important to us in the United Kingdom. There's nowhere to do that safely outside this new embassy. The PRC quite likes that because they don't want protest. But we're not keen on that. We want to have space to be able to voice our discontent at the behaviour of the CCP. And then finally, this point that you've referred to about cables. Yes, although this is shrouded in darkness and all of it's very secret, it has leaked to the media that there are sensitive communications cables that run between Canary Wharf, one big financial centre in London, and the City of London, another big financial centre in London. So that carries massive attendant risks for a government which has the capability, willingness, and track record of interfering with communications cables and wanting to try to disrupt them and to hack critical infrastructure when they can. So we're naturally very worried about that. That isn't just a problem for the UK. That affects any country that has financial institutions working in either of those two important financial centres, which is many developed democracies.
Yeah, and it's right next to the Tower Bridge, and any kind of the protest would be problematic if they have the embassy over there. And do you know why are they so not happy with the current embassy, which is, I've been next to it, it's actually very close to the Polish embassy. And it's a huge building. Why do they need another one? Why do they need a bigger one? Why do they want to expand?
Well, there are a few reasons that we think they want to move. They haven't been that clear about it. They want a bigger one. And you might be able to argue that they've had that embassy for a long period of time when they're a much smaller economy than they are now, and they might want an embassy which is appropriate for the size and power that they have as a country. You can kind of understand that argument. There's also quite a strong argument for it to move in the sense that it is also not safe to protest outside Portland Place, the location of their current embassy, without blocking the roads or without, potentially getting run over. So clearly, there are, I think, reasons for it to move from where it is currently. Our argument would not be no embassy or no embassy move. Our argument would be, okay, if you need to move it, fine, but not there, not a huge status symbol embassy which presents huge national security issues. And that's the reason we're opposing it.
Not in that area. Is there still any way to stop or delay the approval?
Well, once the call-in decision is made, presuming that it's in favour of the development, it's very difficult to stop, but it is possible to judicially review the decision. So you can legally challenge it. And in fact, we believe that there are very good grounds to legally challenge it. We'll have to wait to see what the planning inspector's decision actually says to know what the arguments that can be made will be, but there is another way. There's another way of doing this. In fact, residents' associations have already set up a fund for a legal campaign for our judicial review, and I encourage all your listeners, if they want to support that, to go to that link, and I hope that you'll give them that link so that they can throw, I don't know, the value of a cup of coffee towards these residents to enable them to try to win this David and Goliath fight against Beijing's mega embassy.
There have been multiple protests next to the embassy, and a friend of mine, Lewis from Free China Channel, has attended each and every one of those protests. And I've invited him today to talk about what are the demands that the protesters are putting forward. Lewis from Free China, an independent journalist and a YouTuber who has attended all of the protests against the mega embassy in London. Lewis, could you tell the viewers what did they take to the streets to protest against that mega embassy?
Sure. Okay. Thanks for having me, by the way, Stan. So the protesters, they gathered around the mega embassy, and there's been 4 protests, and I've attended each and every one of them, and they've just gotten bigger and bigger over the coming months. It's been going now for the last 4 months, and the protesters, their demand is basically they do not want this mega embassy to happen. They really oppose this mega embassy to be opened by the CCP. If you think about it, there are hundreds and thousands of Hong Kongers living in the UK, and they came to the UK to flee the CCP. They came here to get away from China, get away from the grip of the CCP with the whole national security law and clamping down of freedom in Hong Kong. They came to the UK because they trust the UK government, and the UK government has betrayed them by making this deal with the CCP behind their backs. So the Hong Kongers have all come here to protest, and they're hoping that more and more people will join them in their protest. And their demand is no mega embassy, full stop.
Yeah, there are people from Hong Kong, and there are also local residents of the Royal Mint, right? They might be also having their own concerns. And I know that you have interviewed a couple of locals. What do they think about the mega embassy?
Sure. So the local residents of Tower Hamlets, that's the name of the council in that area, they are furious. So there's around 100 properties in that neighborhood to house all of the residents there. And apparently, if this embassy goes ahead, there's going to be 100 or more embassy staff moving into that neighborhood. Now, it's already a very crowded area. It's extremely busy. And just imagine 100 more people moving into that area. It is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So the residents are rightly pissed off with this. And what's even worse is the local residents right now, they feel like they're being monitored by the CCP because this embassy is going to have a huge security presence. You've seen like the Chinese embassy on Portland Street. There's CCTV cameras all around it.
Everywhere.
Now this mega embassy is just going to have so many CCTV cameras everywhere, and the residents are really worried that if they step out of line or they say anything negative about the CCP, then they could wind up in trouble. And it's quite interesting because the local residents, they were really clueless about the CCP, before this whole thing started. They had no idea, absolutely no idea. But now it seems that they're all experts on the CCP and they know all of the terrible things that the CCP has done in the past and are capable of doing. And they really, really do not want this mega embassy to open. And one more thing, they say that the CCP has actually been occupying this building for a lot longer than what they knew about this mega embassy opening. So there has been a CCP presence in this building, and what they're doing in there, who knows?
Nobody knows, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they are right to be afraid of the CCP presence in the area, because, you know, their embassies are known of dragging people on the premises of the embassies, and then who knows what happens to those people. Like in Manchester, do you remember when that he was one of the chief executives there, one of the counselors, and like a guy wearing a beret. He was basically beaten and trying to drag a Hong Konger on the territory, on the premise of the embassy. So
he grabbed him by the hair, trying to pull him in to the premises of the consulate, which is basically CCP's territory. So if they get somebody in that building, then they can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, basically drag him abroad.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Pretty much just drag him into CCP land.
Yeah.
And what's interesting also is that there are a lot of properties in that area that is sat on land that is owned by the CCP now. The CCP owns a lot of land in that area around the Royal Mint, right? So if this embassy does get the go-ahead, then some of these residents, they don't know if they're going to be kicked out, relocated. They have no idea what's going to happen. So, you know, their future right now is uncertain. And this embassy, apparently on the 9th of September, we're going to get an answer. But they also said before the 9th of September, we could give you an answer. And it looks like it is going to go ahead, unfortunately.
So it's like the Chinese government has the right of freehold of the land.
Yes.
In Royal Mint. Wow. So they're not leasing it, they're owning the land there.
They own the land.
Wow.
And did you know they paid 250 million?
It's a historic area. It's a very well-known area. It's like right next to the Tower of London. How did the British government allow them to purchase this land and basically make it like the land of the Chinese Communist Party? This is just for me it sounds outrageous. Yeah.
This is one of the most undemocratic things this current Labour government has done. You know, they didn't even ask the residents. Like, as you know, this whole planning application was initially rejected by the Tower Hamlets Council. It was rejected by the residents. It was rejected by the former Conservative government. And now China are just trying their luck with it. And they just happen to get a Labour government that is desperate to make a trade deal.
Yeah, asking residents is like it was the right thing to do. Well, let's just keep on following with the news and hope that it won't be approved, but who knows. Okay, thank you, Lewis. Thank you for joining me today. This story isn't just about a building in London. It's about how authoritarian power is creeping into the free world. Not with tanks, but with blueprints, trade deals, and diplomatic blackmail. And I have a question to you guys. Do you think that Britain will stand up for its sovereignty? Or has London just become another front of the CCP's global soft power war? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want more reporting like that, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. And don't forget that freedom is not free.